Here is today's learning agenda. We will understand data management and integration by using data entities. We will learn how to work with data management workspaces. We will understand templates in data management. We will learn export and import and copy data into a legal entity. We also learn how to create and perform test cases for user acceptance testing in Business Process Modular Library. We will understand get ready to go live, what steps need to be taken. We can use data management framework to manage data entity and data entity packages in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. The data management framework consists of following concepts. First concept is data entity. Data entity is an abstraction from the physical implementation of database tables. For example, in normalized tables, a lot of data for each customer might be stored in a customer table, and then the rest might be spread across a small set of related tables. In this case, the data entity for the customer concept appears as one denormalized view in which each row contains all the data from the customer table and its related tables. A data entity encapsulates a business concept into a format that makes development and integration easier. The abstracted nature of data entity can simplify application development and customizations. Later, the abstraction also insulates application code from inevitable churn of the physical table between versions. To summarize, data entity provides conceptual abstraction and encapsulation denormalized view of underlying table scheme to represent key data concept and functionalities. Second concept is data project. A project that contains configured data entities which include mapping and default processing options. A data project is automatically created when we select import or export from the data management workspace. Configuration data projects are used to manage the movement of company configuration data between instances of our application. Import project will have import configuration, and export project will have export configuration. A data project allows user to configure the entities that should be part of the project, and it defines the format that is used for each entity. It allows user to define the mapping that is used from the source file to the staging and specify the default processing options. The third concept of data entity data migration is data job. This is a job that contains an execution instance of the data project, uploaded files, schedule recurrences, and processing options. A data job is used to perform the actual import or export operation. It contains the uploaded files, the schedule or recurrences information, and the processing options to use for the job. A data job is created when the import or export operation is performed. The data job creates an instance of the data project and runs it. If we are doing an ad hoc import or export, then there's typically one job for each data project. If it is being done multiple times with different data, then we can use the same data project to import data multiple times by using different jobs. Each data project can have one or more data projects and data jobs. For instance, if we are doing a single ad hoc data import, then we might have one file that is being imported. In this case, there is a single data project that then has one data job. Another scenario is that we might be importing data using the same data project multiple times, but with different data. In this case, there can be more than one data job for a single data project. Each data job can have one or more job histories. For instance, a data job might be run multiple times after errors have been fixed. The job history tells us the details such as the time taken to run the job, the number of records processed, and the error during processing. Job history, histories of sourcing to staging and staging to target job. Once a job has been run, we can see the job history, which contains the run history for each execution run of the data job and the history of the data moved from source to staging and from staging to target. The job history tab in the data management workspace shows all job history for the import and export data projects. From job history, we can view the run history of the sourcing to staging and staging to target steps. Each project can have multiple jobs, which in turn have executions. By using the job history, we can view the execution details and determine the time it took to run the job, the number of records that were processed, and so on. Data package is a single compressed file that contains a data project manifest and data file. Data package are a key concept for many application lifecycle management scenarios, such as copy configuration and data migration. This is generated from that job and is used for the importing or exporting of multiple files with the manifest. Once the data project is defined, including the data entity and the mapping and the sequencing between these data entities, we can then create a data package. The data package can then be used to move the definition of the data project from one environment to another. User can generate a data package from a data job. To create a data package, go to Data Management Workspace. Load the project that we want to create the data package for, and then select download. This generates a zip file. The zip file contains the package header and manifest. The manifest defines the setting of the data project. The data package can be used to copy the setting of our data project from one environment to another. Now, let's look at data management platform. We can export or import data into Dynamics 365 for finance and operations by using the data management workspace. Validate the data by staging the source data and then move it to the target table in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations database. The data management framework in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations is mainly accessed and utilized by individuals that belong to the role of system administrator and supports using data entities in the following core data management scenario. Data migration to quickly migrate reference, master, and document data from legacy or external systems. Set up and copy configurations between companies or environments. And integrations. In general, data management platform include staging data, validation data, data transformation, data mapping, and pre or post data processing. The data management framework supports using data entity in the following core data management scenario. First, data migration. By using the data management framework, we can quickly migrate reference, master, and document data from legacy and external system. It provides feature to import data into staging environment, perform basic data quality service, or validation operations on this data, and allow us to validate and cleanse the data. The data management platform also has features that allow we to map data from import to the target and do pre and post processing on data. Note that if we export data, the source is Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And if we import data, the target is Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. The framework is intended to help you quickly migrate data by using the following features. We can select only the entity we need to migrate. If an import error occurs, we can skip selected records and choose to process with the import by using only the good data. Option to fix, then fix and import the bad data later. We will be able to partially continue and use errors to quickly find bad data. We can move data entity straight from one Dynamics 365 for finance and operations system to another, with having to go through Excel or XML. Data import can be easily scheduled by using a batch, which offers flexibility when it is required to run. For example, we can migrate customer group, customers, vendors, and other data entity in the system at any time. Set up and copy configurations. We can use this to copy configuration between companies or environments and configure process or modules by using the Lifecycle Services environment. Copying configuration is intended to make it easier to start a new implementation, even if our team doesn't deeply understand the structure of data that needs to be entered, or data dependencies, or which sequence to add data to an implementation. The data management framework allows us to move data between two similar systems, discover entities and dependencies between entities for a given business process or module, maintain a reusable library of data templates and data sets, use data package to create incremental data entities. Data entities can be sequenced inside the package. We can name data package, which can be easily identifiable during import or export. When building data packages, data entities can be mapped to staging table in a grid or by using visual mapping tools. We can also drag and drop columns manually. We can view data during imports so we can compare data and ensure that it's valid. Integration. Data integration is the process of building and maintaining the synchronic of data between Microsoft Dynamics 365 for finance and operations and other systems. This is used where the real-time service-based integration is needed, or when we a asynchronous integration. The real-time integration does not have staging area and is directly processed by the service layer. For example, import bank statement using BAI2 format into Dynamics 365 for finance operations. Data migration and data flow. Data migration is the process of move data from one system to another, as we mentioned already, which is often necessary steps in order to set up new system while utilizing the data that already existing in the current systems. This is an initial or ad hoc data load that is performed manually by using the user interface. The scenarios where one uses this pattern could be when a functional user has some data in a source, such as Excel workbook, that needs to be imported from legacy system to Dynamics 365 for finance and operations during data migration. Data flow. When we process data migration, normally the first step is to load the source file, from the source to the central storage, such as Azure. Then, the data import-export framework picks up the data from the central storage and then pushes it into the staging tables of Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. Then, from staging, the data is moved to target by using data entity that have been defined. The flow of the data can be done either row by row or by using a set base of data entity for the entire underlying tables for each data entity. The sequence and the order in which the target table will be populated can be controlled by using the sequence entity feature of finance and operations. Data entity provide conceptual abstraction and a denormalized view of underlying table schema that represent data concept and functionalities. Here, we explain how to use data management and integration by using data entities. After data entities are created, we should be able to reuse them for Excel add-ins, import and export, or integration scenario. A data entity has the following capabilities. It provides a single stack to capture business logic, enables scenarios such as import and export, and integration, and support additional logics by a developer adding code. It becomes the primary mechanism for exporting and importing data package for application lifecycle service management, ALM, and demo data scenarios. It can be exposed as OData services and then used in tabular style, synchronous integration scenario, and Microsoft Office integration. Entities are categorized based on their functions and the type of data that they serve. The following are 5 categories for data entities: parameters, references, master, document, and transactions. Parameters data entity include data of functional or behavior parameters that are required to set up a deployment or a module for a specific build or customers. Can include data that is specific to an industry or businesses. The data can also apply to a broader set of customers. Tables that contains only one record where the columns are value for settings. Example of such tables existing for account payable AP, general ledger GL, client performance options, workflows, and so on. Reference data entity includes simple reference data of small quantity that is required to operate a business process. Data that is specific to an industry or business process. Example including units, dimensions, and a tax code. Master data entity includes data assets of the businesses. Generally, these are the master data of business which typically fall into categories such as people, places, and concepts. They are complex reference data, normally of large quantity. Examples include customers, vendors, and projects. Document data entity includes worksheet data that is converted into transactions later. Documents that have complex structure, such as several lines item for each header record. Examples include sales order, purchase order, open balance, and journals. The operational data of the business, for example, free tax invoices. Transaction data entity include the optional transaction data of the business, posted transactions. These are non-important items such as posted invoices and balances. Typically, these items are excluded during a full dataset copy. Example including pending invoices. Data management by using data entities can support the following integration: synchronous service OData. Data entity enable public application programming interface APIs on entities to be exposed, which enables synchronous service. This method is used for Office integration and third-party mobile apps integrations. The other one is asynchronous integration. Data entity also support asynchronous integration through a data management pipeline. This enables asynchronous and high-performance data insertion and extraction scenarios. This method is used for interactive file-based import-export and recurring integrations. Business intelligence by using aggregate data measures available in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. Built-in controls such as chart and integration for standardized key performance indicator KPIs with Power Platforms such as Power BI. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations provides improved and captivative reports to offer insights to the business data. The last one was Applied Lifecycle Management, ALM. Besides integration and business intelligence Power BI scenarios, data entity also initially support two critical application lifecycle management scenario. One is configuration data provision, very useful when set up multiple test environments during implementation, such as unit test environment, sandbox environment. Data migration, move mass data, transactions, documents between multiple environments during the implementation. The data management workspace provides access to important tasks for data management. It also provides information about projects and project execution tasks. After we have created a configuration data project, it appears in the data projects grid in the data management workspace. For each project, the type of configuration, import or export, and the project category, project, configuration, integration, or other are shown. Use the option to the left of the grid to filter by the appropriate project. The project definition is shared across legal entity. To open a project, select the project and then select Load Project. To open the import or export page, use Delete button to delete the select projects we no longer need it. We can also download the project definitions by using Download button. Use job history to find more details about the project that we have run. Use the date range filters to filter by the dates when the data project will run. we can view execution details by selecting a job and then using execution detail menu. Sequence data entity within a data package. Two types of sequencing should be considered when we are working with data entities. Sequencing data entities within a data package and sequencing the order of data package imports. Sequence in data entity or data packages are important. Right sequence will make data migration smoothly. Otherwise, it will cause data migration fails. For example, we should always import customer group first, then import customers. Mapping. As we reviewed in last session, when we are working with data entity, mapping an entity to a source is automatic. The automatic mapping of fields can be overridden if needed. To view how an entity is mapped, locate the tile for the entity in the project and then select View Mapping. The data management framework provides a mapping virtualization view by default and mapping details view. A red asterisk disk identifies any required field is an entity. These fields must be mapped for we to be able to work with the entity. Other fields can be unmapped as required when we are working with the entity. To unmap a field, highlight the field in either column, entity or source, select Delete Selection, and then select Save. After changes are saved, close the form to return to the project. After import, we can also add the field mapping from source to staging by using the same process. If we have fields in entities that we want the system to generate data for on import, instead of providing the data in the source file, we can use the auto-generate functionality in the mapping details for the entity. Please note that the image here shows the export project. Therefore, the auto-generate mapping is not available because the Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations data entity are the source data of our project. However, notice that in the import project, the data source is coming from other systems, such as those legacy applications. Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations uses the business logic of each data entity, discovers the dependencies, and sequence the data entity based on their relationship and dependencies. For example, if we want to import customers and customer address information, but address information was not previously imported with the global address book entities, we can have the entity auto-generate the party number upon import, and the global address book information will be created. To access this functionality, view the map of the entity and then select Mapping Details tab. Select the field that we want to auto-generate. This will change the source field to auto Currently, there are two views available to work with data management project: the standard and enhanced view. When we are in project, either as import or export, the entity sequence button is only available in standard view. Both views show all available tiles in the data management framework. However, the enhanced view gives more detailed information about and control over the project than the standard view. Default templates are delivered together with each new release of Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. Microsoft's long-term goal is to provide the templates in Lifecycle Services, LCS, so that we can push them to an instance of Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. However, for the current release, select the templates tile in the data management workspace and then select load default templates to load the templates from Microsoft. To see load default templates menu, we must use enhanced view. Microsoft recommends using the enhanced view to have a more feature and flexibility while working with our project. After templates are loaded, we can change them to suit our business requirements. If we ever want to retrieve the original default templates, we can use Load Default Template button to add them back to our system. The templates will then be replaced with the latest version. If we have made changes to the templates, we can make a copy of the old templates by exporting them. Note that system administrator access is required to load default templates and import templates. This requirement helps guarantee that all entities are correctly loaded into the template. For the newly deployed environment of Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, the default templates are not loaded. Microsoft recommends that we select the Load Default Templates button to view the default templates. Merge the templates. Microsoft have created large templates that cover multiple module areas. We can use large templates or any combination of smaller templates to build a data project. The following combined templates are available: System and Shared. Templates include System Setup, Global Address Book, Shared General Ledger, and Workflow. Financials template includes General Ledger, Bank, Accounts Payable, Tax, Accounts Receivable, Fixed Assets, and Budgeting. Supply chain management templates include inventory management, product management, procurement, sales and marketing, limited warehouse management, production control, and costing. Expense and project management templates aren't included in large templates. However, they are designed so that they can easily be merged into projects that use another templates. Workers templates include entities needed to add workers and remap entity where the worker mapping was removed. To create and manage data import and export jobs in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, we can use data management workspaces. By default, the data import and export process creates a staging table for each entity in the target database. Staging table let us verify, clean up, or convert data before we move it. Following are steps to import and export data. First, create an import or export job where we will complete the task of define the project category, identify the entities to import or export, set data format for the job such as CVS, Excel, XML, or package, set up proper sequence the entities so that they are processed in a logical groups and in an order that makes sense. Determine whether the user staging table. For best practice, it always suggests to use staging table with import projects. Then validate and make sure that the source data and the target data are mapped correctly. After that, further verify and confirm the security for the import and export job. When we run the import and export job, after the job completed successfully, always validate the job ran as expected by reviewing the job history. At last, we can clean up the staging table to release database spaces. A data import or export job can be run one time or as many times as needed. Microsoft recommends that we take the time to select an appropriate project category for our import or export job. Project categories can help us manage related jobs. When we select an entity, we must select format of the data that will be exported or imported. We can define formats by using the data source setup tile. A source data format is a combination of type, file format, row delimiter, and column delimiter. Entities can be sequenced in a data template or in import and export job. When we run a job that contains more than one data entity, we must make sure that they are correctly sequenced. Primarily, we sequence entity to address any functional dependencies among entities. If entities don't have any functional dependencies, they can be scheduled for parallel import or export. Now, let's take time to demo Explore Data Management Workspace and export and import data to finance and operations. Last, we will review data templates in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. Now, let's review data management function in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. To use data management, we normally open the data management workspaces. open data management workspaces. In the left side, that's a couple tiles, two tiles we can use for data management. And in the middle, it will show you all the data projects. The projects include import projects and export projects. The right hand is the job history for each job run. It's sorted by the time when the job is executed. Let's first look at framework parameters for data management. When we open data management, data import and export framework parameters window, in the general tab, it will define shared working directory, which used for exchange, import, and export files. This normally is a shared file folder in our computers. Sometimes we can use a server directory. And you can validate if this service account access can be accessed to this directory or not. In the service connection URL, that's the default setting from Dynamics 365 for financial operations. Normally, we don't need to change it. If the error happened during data management, import and export, how do you like to handle the error? You can switch on if you want to ignore error, or you can create error files if error happens. Then, do you want to remove duplicates automatically? If so, just switch it on yes. Data access mode is only have two options. One is a table or view fast load, or table or view. Maximum insert commit size is a default size. Normally we don't touch it and don't need to change it. View defaults is default by user or with a standard view, or you want to open its enhanced view. The maximum number of legal entities can be copied into is normally when we copy legal entity configuration, how many companies in the one time you allow that import and export framework to process, copy. And a SQL command timeout for non-BYOD is the seconds of SQL command timeout. In the entity setting, we normally can refresh entity list if we have, for example, some entity has been modified or customized, or we created new entities to Dynamics 365 for financial operations. In that case, we can refresh entity list to get the most updated entity in the system. Or we can configure entity execution parameters. This allows us to specify some entity in order to enhance performance. We can increase threshold for record count or import task count. It's normally used for large volume of import for certain data entities or some multiple data entities. Bring your own database BYOD is the setting we can specify timeout for SQL command or send the timeout for communication between BYOD and the Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. If you want to enable all company export, we can switch that on. That means all company will communicate to BYOD database. And flat file compatible option is allow us to enable header for fixed width file and XML file format compatibility is have two switch. One is entity name in a non-uppercase or attribute name in a non-uppercase. So this is brief of data import and export framework parameters. After we finalize and set these parameters, now let's looking at data entities. This is all the data entities out of box in Dynamics 365 for financial operations. In this entity list, for example, let's select accountants and I will click entity structure. After entity structure window open, we can see data source. In here, we can enable or disable running business logic in our project. For example, the data migration, we might have modified the setting of certain configuration to meet customer requirements. However, the legacy data would violate the new rule, so we might need to make the decision to turn off role for historical data. To do that, just click Edit, and we can switch off the Run Business Validation and Run Business Logic Insert or Update method if the legacy data not compatible with the new Dynamics 365 for financial operations. We can switch that to off. This is entity structure. Now, let me click Target Fields. Select Target Fields. We can view and edit the tag fields such as enable or disable the table configuration key status. This is all the target fields with these entity structures. Now I close it. Let's looking at entity model view. After click at model view, this allows us to have a better visibility by grouping entities for each category and a subcategory of node represent the model, and also by grouping the entity models. For example, if I open account payable, in this entity model view, in the account payable model, we can see different categories: master data, transaction data, reference data, document data, and parameters. Each of this category will include group of the entity reflect the master data. Alternatively, we also can use entity category view. From another point of view, the entity category view group all the entity by the category. For example, master. If I open the master, I can see all models in the master. So same thing, if I click the budget model in the master data category, it is showing all master entity for budgeting modules. So this gives us a better understanding how the model and the category related on data entities. Okay, let me close that for data entities. If we want to modify target mapping, we can click modify target mapping. So it will click edit to change current mapping, or we can delete new mapping, click delete button, or we can click new to adding new data mapping from staging to target. If you finish confirm, you can save it, or you can click generate mapping, automatically mapping staging to target with the data entity. Okay, let me close this data entity and we continue looking at configure data sourcing. We already covered that in last sessions. So here we can define different data sourcing for data management. It can be file, it can be operation, and also can be a packaging file. Template. Templates, as we described, is a group of data entities we can use to move certain data between systems. If I click a templates tile, it will list all the templates in my Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. I can create new templates as I need. For example, I want to create a template move project management accounting module master data between two systems or two legal entities. In that case, I can create call PMA configure. And I can put description project management accounting configuration. You noticed the template status so far is draft. So I can start to adding the entities, save that. Now I can start adding entities. In the entities, I can put all my required entity for project configuration. For example, here category, select that entity, and project category. Now I will select project category group first and project category. Then project group, and project ledger. Posting definition. And last will be projects. When done, I can click close. Now I make my project templates. Pay attention, the templates, it's a include multiple data entities, and these entities in this project package, as we mentioned in the presentation, we need to pay attention on the sequence. Right sequence will make the import smoothing. If a wrong sequence, for example, if we move the project before the project group, when we use this packaging data template, the import will be failed, because when we import projects, the project group is mandatory required, but because it's not imported yet, so it will be missing project group when we import projects. So it will cause an error and fail on data movement. I also can, if I found some sequence not right, I also can select and resequence sequence number. I can say start with 10 and increment by 5. So you can see it will be automatic resequence. And also you can sort by unit, level, and sequence, all with different. In other function, when we create template, we always can select the filter which is eligible for my data moving. For example, I only want to sorry, I clicked the wrong button. If I only want to, the project group, category group is only need to import expense type and item type. I can click OK. So this template only will export the project group type. Project category group type is project item and project expense. When we're done, we can either save this template or we can export my template to a local file. So I will say this is PMA configuration template. Okay. So, and if I want to validate these templates, I can run validate template. Now, after validate, the status change from draft to validate, indicate these templates, no errors. Also, I can run configuration validation from the templates, and I can run in the background as a batch process and give the batch group. So click OK. So let the system to run this configuration validation. Let's do a quick test. If I delete this template, I always can use import template function from my saved template. So I can go to download. I have my PMA configuration template. Click open and create a template. Now you can see my template is imported. This is the function I can create my own template to move certain data from particular module to another system or another legal entity. If you want to use default template which Microsoft offered, we always can click the Load Default Template button, and System Dynamics 365 for Financial Operations will list all the templates ID Microsoft offered to us. So based on that, you can select the system setup data or GL shared configuration data, bank module, AP, AR, fixed assets, and a budget. For example, I can load selected, or I can select load all. I will load all the templates for me. So I loaded selected. Now you can see after processing, the system loading all the templates for me, so I can easily using this template validate all the entity, and I can use this one, the template, to move data between two companies or legal entities. Okay, if I happy with that, we can save. So this will be the templates within my Dynamics 365 for Financial Operation in Data Management module. Okay, I close that. Now, let's do a quick demo about how to import and export with data entity. First, let's export some data. Before I export, I will switch my company to USMF. Now, I click export. This is the export standard view. If I want to use enhanced view, I can click enhanced view button. I give a group name for export. For example, export item group. Export item group. When we create export project, we always can specify the project category. If it's a project, or it's a configuration, or it's integration, or other of CDS Common Data Services. So this is the category we can specify for this export project. For my demo, I just leave it as a project. And do you want to generate data package? Switch on yes. It's able to generate the data package for us. Now, I click add entity. I will find an entity called item group. And I say this is a target package, data package, can be Excel or can be package. And I click close. Okay, when this is loaded, I can close it. So my item group export projects created, and this icon view mapping means this mapping is good, no errors contains. And then For this demo purpose, I will create a filter. Say I only want to export item group, which the item group is TV and video. Click OK. Now I can export the data. Data export project job is scheduled. So I can refresh. It indicates item group exported successfully and with 1 records. Here's the job history detail. And because I switch on download package, I can download package from here, and I can give the name, user-friendly name, call item group. Okay, I close that, and I can close this job history and I close this one. Now you can see I have in the job history, I have a export item group job running executing time, which company, and what's the group ID I'm used. Now, before I import, I'd like to duplicate my instance and I'd like to copy the item group, video and audio item group to my another company, USSI. So when I import, if the data management workspace is switched to another legal entity such as USSI, so all input will be, the data will be imported to this legal entity. Before I import, I'd like to go to cost management, inventory accounting policy setup, item group in USSI. From here, I only see project item and service item group in USSI company. Okay, now I start to import the item group package to USSI company by click the tile import. And this is enhanced view of import project. I can give the project group name, description, but for this demo purpose, I would like to switch to standard view, and I give the name called import item group. And I can select data format, which is a package. And I can upload my package. Now you see my package is uploaded. I'll be able to view mapping if the icon is triangle, but in that icon indicate the mapping is successfully. Now I can just click import, and after refresh, it's indicate item group successfully import one in stage and one is created in USSI company. So now I go back to item group in USSI company and click refresh button, and you can see TV and video group, item group is successfully imported to USSI company. This is how do we use export and import. Let me close this import window. Now let's look at setup role for data projects. We have two data projects created, one for import and one for export. By click setup role for data project, we are able to specify certain project process group like export or import. For example, I should choose import item group. I can specify this process group is only can be done by the role, and I select the role name. For example, manager. Or I also can select user and specify certain user can run this, for example, April. That means only April can run the import item group for this data migrations. Also, I can delete it or disable the role, then everyone can use this import item group project. Now, let's look at staging cleanup tile. Staging cleanup tile, when we click that, we can select what entity we are going to clean up the history staging data. We just used item group, so let's type in item groups. And we can further select the job ID, and you can specify which job ID I'd like to clean the staging data. Or you can leave it and click OK. So that means this staging data is being cleaned up. If you don't want to, you want to clean up the history, you also can select and delete. So you can see system give a alert staging data is successfully cleaned. Okay, now let's talk about configure entity export to database tile. We'll click new. We will give a source name and a description. This tile function configure entity export to database is used for publish data to Azure SQL database or create data entity for BYOD Azure database. This is normally used for integration the data between Dynamics 365 for financial operations for BYOD database. In here, we need the place is to configure the connect string of from Azure SQL database, and it can validate, so create the configure the connection between Dynamics 365 for financial operations to Azure SQL DB or BYOD DB. Then you can create the communication, exchange data between two databases. Okay, let me close that. Another tile is called Data Task Automation. From here, we can load default tasks. For example, MS sample regression, DMF manifest. I select and then load. So you can see system load all these tasks as a automation task executing with data management, data migration. This function is let us to easily repeat many types of data tasks and validate the outcome of each task. The data task automation is very useful actually for projects that are in the implementation phase. For example, we can automate the creation and configuration of data project. We can also configure and trigger the execution of import and export operations, such as set up demo data and the golden configuration data and other tasks that are related to data migrations. So we can set up that the system automatically run. For example, let's look at a couple examples. We can let system automatically import base entity API or import and export certain XML attributes name for entity parcel case. So if we want to system automate doing that for us, and we can load in the data task automation. Now, the last one we are going to talk is very powerful tiles and tools in data management, which is copy into legal entity. Copy into legal entity is very useful for copy configuration data between companies or legal entities. So it's very useful when we do the implementation if we want to copy staging company, staging instance, company configuration to UAT environment. It's typically the ideal tool we should use. So we can give the group name called company copy and the data project operation type automatically copy into that legal entity. And you can specify project category by configuration. And because I'm logging as USSI, so system automatically default sourcing legal entity is USSI. Now, do you want to copy number sequence? It normally should switch yes if the legal entity, the target legal entity, is a brand new legal entity. And we can select the existing legal entity as a target legal entity copy from USSI configuration to this legal entity. Or even we can on fly create a new legal entity, give the name, for example, SRHQ, C horse retailer, and give the region called USA. click OK. Now, Dynamics 365 for financial operations start creating a new legal entity. Now you can see the new legal entity SRHQ is created, and I now can select entity to copy the number sequence from USSI to SRHQ. Also, I can add the template in my list, for example, system setup, and select the option is if it's existing, I want merge or I want to replace. In my case, I will say replace. Then I click OK. System start loading my templates into my entity grid list. So this is my system template. I also can continue loading other templates if I want. Now, I then can copy into the legal entity. After refresh, system lists all the copying status. Some is successful, some still ongoing. So this is the copy configuration function. And system also tells us it's changing the company account to SRHQ automatically. So you can see SRHQ automatically created, and the data entity is start copy, and address parameters copied, and the global address parameter also copied. So this is wrapped up about data management function in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. Thank you. Perform user acceptance testing, UAT. Understand the go-live process. The go-live process consists of the following actions, which should be considered as a sequential steps in a checklist. Update go-live date in LCS is the first steps. Throughout project implementation, make sure that the milestone dates are continuously keep up to date. We need to start this step at the latest 2 to 3 months prior to go live. We needed to closely engage with customer key stakeholders during this period in case anything unusual happens. Second step is to complete and send pre-go-live checklist. We can perform this task after all user acceptance test UATs are completed and signed off by key stakeholders. All Dynamics 365 for finance and operations customers must complete a go-live assessment with the Microsoft Fast Track team before their production environment can be deployed. These assessments should be successfully completed before we request our production environment from Microsoft. The third step is project assessment, Fast Track essential. The architects will deliver the assessments after checklist is received and will then continue reviewing until questions are clarified and mitigations are in place. If applicable, it should take a few days for initial report, plus additional time for mitigation. If required, this task is a responsibility of a fast-track architecture in Microsoft. Project Workshop Fast Track. A fast-track architect uses project workshop to coordinate activities for assessments. The fourth steps is release for production deployment. In this step, if the production deployment request has already been submitted, deployment will start. However, Microsoft requests that we only submit the production request after the assessment has successfully completed. We should perform this task upon a successfully completed assessment. The fifth step is request production deployment. This is a self-service task and the responsibility of our customer, so it can be done with our help. The customer should request the production deployment and submit it to Microsoft only after the fast-track architect has finished the assessment. As an earlier part of this step, the sizing team should have informed the customer able to topology needed in pricing option. Automatic sizing is based on a subscription estimate by default, while manual sizing is based on exception. In the case of automatic sizing, the timing for the sizing is immediate, but it could take longer if it requires further clarification of the subscription estimate. Finally, the Dynamic Service Engineering DSE team performs the deployment, which can take up to 48 hours to complete. The status fields in LCS reflects the deployment progress. Any questions that we might have about our request will be posted as comments on the service request. The sixth step is submit deployable package installation request. All customers should be aware that applying packaging causes system downtime. All relevant services will be stopped, and they won't be able to use the environment while the package is being applied. We should plan accordingly and perhaps perform this task during off hours. For package installation, depending on number of packages, it could take a minimum of 5 hours lead time and 4 hours downtime for each package. Generally, 95% of the updates are applied in less than 1 hour. However, Microsoft still recommends that we provide a downtime window of 4 hours in case a rollback is required for any reason. When the package deployment succeeds, the environment will be available as soon as the package deployment has finished, which means that the longer downtime window does not have any negative effects on system availability. The seventh step is submit request to copy database from sandbox if applicable. We need to follow the instructions exactly as they are documented by Microsoft. Refresh database. Also, we need to request copy database to restore it to the sandbox environment. Once request, Dynamic Service Engineering DSE will copy the production database and make it available in the LCS project's assets library. Note that it might be need 5 hours lead time and result in 2 hours downtime. Generally, the database copy is completed in less than 1 hour, but Microsoft still recommend that we provide a downtime window of 2 hours in case rollback is required for any reason. The eighth step is production ready step. In this task, we and our customer can take control of the production environment after all previous steps have been completed successfully. Depending on the project, some cutover activities might need to be performed. Now, the last is go live. Depending on the project, the customer can go live with Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, which is hosted in the production environment. Please note, only Microsoft can touch production environment. We and the Microsoft partner cannot access production environment at all. Complete the lifecycle service methodology. After we have prepared to go live, it is time to take Dynamics 365 for finance and operations to the production environment. Completing the lifecycle service methodology is a major milestone in each implementation project, and it is cut over to the production environment. To help ensure that the production environment is used for live operations, Microsoft will provision the production instance only when the implementation is approaching the operating phase after the required activity in the lifecycle service methodology are complete. Customers must complete the analysis, design, and develop, and the test phases in the lifecycle service methodology before the configure button that is used to request the production environment become available. To complete a phase in lifecycle services, we first need to complete every required step in the phase. When all steps in the phase are completed, we can complete the whole phase. We can always reopen a phase later if we need to make changes. The process of completing a step has two parts. One, performing the actual work, such as fit gap analysis or user acceptance testing, UAT. Selecting the corresponding step in lifecycle services methodology as completed. It's good practice to complete the steps in the methodology as we make progress with the implementation. Avoid waiting until the last minute. Be thorough rather than simplify clicking through all the steps to quickly get a production environment. It's in the customer's best interest to have a solid implementation. Perform user acceptance testing for our solutions. User acceptance testing, UAT, in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations is a critical part of the deployment stage in implementation lifecycle. After our solution model and performed our own unit test, all clients, project team members, and subject matter experts perform extensive hands-on user acceptance testing to validate our solution design. The UAT process determines whether there are issues that must be resolved prior go live or whether the new system is ready for launch. Testers receive systems user training so that they are familiar with the user interface and the main functions of Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. They then follow a UAT script to step through all possible business scenarios related to a functional system area and record test result. A UAT script is a formally worksheet or checklist that guided a tester through test scenarios and allows them to report their testing result. Each scenario test is categorized as pass or fail. During UAT phase, we need to test all the business process that we have implemented and any customizations that we have made in a sandbox or standard acceptance test environment in the implementation project. To help ensure a successfully go live, we should consider the following as we complete the UAT phase. Test that cases covers the entire scope of requirement. Test by using migrated data. This data should include mass data and opening balance, even if they aren't yet final. Test by using the correct security roles, default roles, and custom roles that are assigned to users. Make sure that the solution complies with any company-specific and industry-specific regulatory requirements. Document all features and obtain approval and sign-off from the customer. Regardless of whether the instance of Dynamics 365 for finance and operations used for testing is a cloud host environment or a downloadable virtual hard disk, testing cannot be considered complete because it might have also been used by a developer or other user for demo and training. Microsoft Fast Track for Microsoft Dynamics 365 for finance and operations is a customer success service that is designed to help us move smoothly and confidently to Dynamics 365 for finance and operations so that we can realize business value faster. When participating in the Fast Track program, we receive guidance about implementation best practice, planning for successful rollouts, and expanding capabilities. However, we can implement at our own pace We also have access to Microsoft engineering resources who are committed to making our experience with Dynamics 365 for finance and operations a success. All finance and operations customers need to complete a go-live review with the Microsoft Fast Track team before their production environment can be deployed. This assessment should be successfully completed before we request our production environment. About 8 weeks before go-lives, the Fast Track team will ask us to fill a go-live checklist. If we have 150 or more seats and a Microsoft solution architect is assigned to our project, the solution architect will contact us. If we have 20 to 149 seats, the checklist will be sent to us via email. The project manager or key project member needs to complete the go-live checklist during the pre-go-live phase of the project. Typically, the checklist is completed 4 to 6 weeks before the proposed go-live date, when UAT is completed or almost completed. After checklist is submitted, a Microsoft solution architect will review the project and provide an assessment that describes the potential risks, best practice, and recommendations for successful go-live of the project. In some cases, the solution architect might highlight risk factors and ask for a mitigation plan. When the assessment is completed, the solution architect will indicate that we are ready to request production environment in lifecycle services. If we request the production environment before the assessment is completed, the deployment will remain in the queued state until the assessment is successfully completed. We can cancel an environment deployment request while it is in a queued state by following these steps. Click Queued. On the Custom Sign-Off tab, click Clear Sign-Off. This will set the environment back into a state of configure and allow us to make changes to the configuration, such as selecting a different data center or environment topology. After we have completed the analysis, design, and development, and test phases in the lifecycle service methodology, and the go-live assessment has concluded that the project is ready, we then can request our production environment. Microsoft recommends that we select a service account, for example, a generic user account, as the admin user of the environment that we deploy. If we use a named user account, we might not be able to access the environment if that user isn't available. The following are scenarios where the admin user needs to access an environment. First, sign in to any environment after initial deployment. In this case, the admin user is the only user who can access the environment. First, sign in to a sandbox environment after database refreshed from the production environment. In this case, all user accounts except the admin account are enabled to sign in. All production environments should be deployed to the same data center where our sandbox environments are deployed. After we have signed off on the request for the production environment, Microsoft is responsible for deploying the production environment for us. The Microsoft Service Level Agreement (SLA) for deployment of the production environment is 48 hours. The production environment can be deployed at any time within 48 hours after we submit the request, provided that our usage profile doesn't require additional information. We can view the progress of the deployment in lifecycle services. Typically, the status of the production environment request remains as queued for a few hours before it's changed to deploying. When we submit a deployment request, the service request for the Microsoft Dynamics Service Engineering DSE team is automatically created. We can view this service request in the service request list in Lifecycle Services. If the DSE team has questions that prevent them from deploying the production environment, they will add a comment to the service request. For example, the DSE team might ask we update the subscription estimation or change the data center. In some cases, we might have to clear the sign-off from the production deployment request to make the changes. We can clear the sign-off only while the status of the production environment request is queued. To clear the sign-off, click the queued button. The status of the request is returned to configure. We then can make any changes that are required and sign off again. Practice questions. Question 1. Which Microsoft solution offers user to do code release testing, tracking bugs? A. Microsoft Azure DevOps. B. Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. C. Solution management. D. Lifecycle services. The correct answer is A. Microsoft Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps Task is a primary tool which allows developer to deploy code release from the assets library into cloud test and a sandbox environment so that SME subject matter expert can use it for user acceptance tests. Question 2. Which following tasks are Microsoft Fast Track team's responsibilities? A. Project workshop. B. Update go live data in LCS. C. Project assessment. D. Confirm UAT finished in Azure DevOps. E. Go live. The correct answer is A. Project workshop and C. Project assessment. After all user acceptance tests, UATs are completed and signed off by key stakeholders. All finance and operation customers must complete a go-live assessment with the Microsoft Fast Track team before their production environment can be deployed. And it is Microsoft Fast Track team's responsibility to run project workshop and deliver assessment after checklist is received, and then will continue review until questions are clarified and mitigations are in places. This assessment process will be performed by Microsoft Fast Track team. So the correct answer should be A. Project workshop and C. Project assessment. Again, to well prepare this exam, I will strongly encourage you to use Microsoft self-paced learning resources for Dynamics 365 for finance and operations, which you can find at aka.ms/learn. Then search for product of Dynamics 365 finance and operations. Microsoft also offers multiple training and certification resources to us, such as microlearning, online courses, instructor-led training. We can pick any of those options which is suitable for our learning and exam preparing. Here are additional resources about MB-300 exam detail. Feel free to look up over there and get well prepared. This is end of whole sessions about MB-300 courses. Thank you.